Our next project is going to utilize collections of data, and we're going to focus in on arrays and array lists as we progress through this project, specifically a one-dimensional array and an array list. So let me show you an example of how these collections of data are going to be utilized in the program that we're going to be building. So here I've got a running example of the classic game of 21, and this is what we are going to construct in this project. And up top we've got a player's hand, and this represents a collection of cards. So the player is currently holding an ace, a 3, a king, and a 7. And the game of 21, the goal is to have a hand of cards that hopefully is 21 or as close to 21 as possible. If we go over 21, we bust and we lose our particular hand. But if we are okay with the number that we're having and we think that we have the best possible hand that we're going to get versus the dealer, then we click stay and the dealer gets to go. So the dealer is going to be dealt cards. And one of the rules for the dealer is that the dealer will take a card as long as they have less than 17. If they have 17 or less, they will take cards. Whereas 18 and above, they don't take a card. So here I win because my hand is worth 21, where the dealer's hand is worth 20. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. So what we saw there was we had the player had a collection of cards, the dealer had a collection of cards, and then the game reset. It wiped out that particular collection for both the player and the dealer, and the game has basically been reset. So over here on the right side of the screen, it shows that I have won one hand and the dealer has not won any. So we should get that kind of effect in the game, and there's quite a bit to get to that point. So let me go ahead and shrink this down. Let's talk more about arrays. So that'll be your goal in this project, is to build the classic game of 21. It's going to be a one-player game versus the computer, and you're going to be using arrays and array lists to manage that. All right, so here I have an example of a one-dimensional array. Now don't worry about the one-dimensional part for now. Just know that we've got 4 related items here that we're stringing together in this one array. So we could call this a string array. We could call this a string array of suits. So we'll give it the name suits. And in the first position, the first element of the array, we're going to give it a value of hearts. And the second element in the array, we're going to give it the value of diamonds. And the third element of the array, we're going to give it the value of spades. And the last one will get the value of clubs. So the way that an array is going to work is that an array is declared, for instance, we would say string suits, and we're going to give it a size of 4. So we're promising that we're going to have 4 strings in this array. And what the computer is going to do is it's going to start at a particular memory address, for instance 8048, and I just totally made up that number. And it's going to put 4 strings in a row in this collection. However, it will have a subscript, which is more commonly known as the index, of 0, 1, 2, and 3. And what that means is that our array starts here. This is the 0 position. This is the beginning. And each string is basically one more step on the index away from 8048. So however much memory this takes up, the next one over will be diamonds, the next one over will be spades, and the next one over will be clubs. So clubs is 3 memory slots away from hearts, the beginning of the array. So that's what an array is and how it works. Now let's get to actually making this. So I'm going to have a setup file for you to download that'll have all of the pictures in it, but basically nothing else. I'm going to leave it up to you to make it. Since you've done a few of these before, I think you can handle that. So we're going to make 11 picture boxes for the player of the game. And the reason why we need to put 11 picture boxes up there is because we need to practice a little defensive programming here. We know that the goal of the game is to get to 21. So in the back of our mind, we should be thinking, well, what's the most amount of cards that you can actually hold in one hand and make 21 without going over and busting? Well, that situation would then be 4 aces that would each be worth one apiece, and then you would also have 4 twos. So 2 times 4 is 8. So now you've got 12 as the value of your hand. And if you had 3 threes, that would be 9 more. So 12 and 9 is 21. So the most amount of cards you could ever have in one hand would be 4 aces, 4 twos, and 3 threes. However unlikely that is, we have to prepare for that so that if the situation were to happen, it's not going to crash our program because we don't have enough picture boxes. An alternative approach to this would be to generate these dynamically at runtime as needed, but for the sake of this class, we're not going to go there. The second thing would be to do the exact same thing for the dealer, and then the third thing is to add 5 labels to the form to represent the player's cards, the dealer's cards, the player's score, the dealer's score, and a 5th label that's just going to basically be the hands one. We don't need to name that, it's not going to change. But those other 4, we need to keep these naming conventions. For instance, all of the, let me go ahead and add some cards here. The pitcher boxes need to be labeled player PB for pitcher box 1. So this would be the 4 of spades here on the screen is the first pitcher box. And player PB11 will be the last possible pitcher box. That needs to stay the same because as we discuss how to do that efficiently in class, one way would be to basically loop through those, and you're going to want to keep the names the same. Same thing for the dealer. You're going to name those dealer PB1 through dealer PB11. And then the 5 labels, player cards is basically this one right here, right above the player's cards. And the dealer's hand right here, this is dealer's cards. Over here where it says player 1 currently, that's the player score, and beneath that is the dealer score. And then label 5 is just the thing that says hands 1. And of course we need 2 buttons. We will name those buttons the hit button, the one on the left, and the stay button, the one on the right. Okay, with that out of the way, I'll close that. To make this program, we're going to need 7 private fields. 3 of those are going to be array lists for the card deck, the player's hand, and the dealer's hand. We're also going to have 2 variables that keep track of the value of the current hand for both the player and the dealer. So I'm going to have you make 1 variable for each. And then lastly, 2 variables that will keep track of the number of hands the player and the computer have won. Okay, so those are all the variables we need. The next thing is to make all the methods, the actual game itself. So the first one is going to be the load deck method. Now I'm going to tell you what to name these things, and we'll discuss ways to make them in class, but it'll be up to you to figure out how the method works. And I want you to keep the method names the same so that as I go around and help you guys develop this, we have the same names in common. Our vocabulary will be the same. So load deck's job will be to fill up the card deck and then shuffle the cards. So basically, it's a way to make sure that we have a deck of cards that we can use. The second method that you'll make is called convert to image. Now, my starter file has all the images in it, so you don't need to go out and find them. And that's basically going to return an image of any given card that is requested of it. So we're going to be passing a parameter to this convert to image. So in the parentheses, we're going to be putting something that will serve as a parameter to say, get me the image of that card, and it's going to return it. All right, the third method is deal card. And deal card, even though there's a lot of things here, it's not that long. The first thing it's going to do is check to see if there are any cards left in the deck. And if not, it needs to call back to this load deck method and load the deck, shuffle it up. Now we can draw a card. So if it passed that test, then it's going to remove the top card from the deck and then also return a string representing that card to be put into either the player's hand or the dealer's hand. So the deal card can be used for either method. All right, we're also going to have a form load event that is going to initially load up the deck and make sure that we have cards to play with. So that's basically going to be a one-line method and an event handler that you'll need to put in. The second one up here is going to be display cards, and we're going to create a loop that will loop through the player's hand and loop through the dealer's hand and put those cards on the screen. It's going to have to go to that convert to image function, get back the image that it needs to be displayed based upon what is stored in either the player's hand array list, or the dealer's hand array list, and put those cards into the picture box. The third method here is score hand. So we have to have a way of evaluating what's their hand worth at the moment. So we will loop through those array lists, total up the cards, and return the value of the hand. While it's doing that, you're going to need to know what an individual card is worth, because some of those cards are easy to figure out, like the 2 through 9, or 2 through 10, but what's a jack or a king or even an ace worth? So we're going to have to return the card value so that the hand can be scored. Okay, the last three methods are the hit button click and the stay button click, and that pretty much gives away what they're going to do. The hit button is going to deal a card to the player of the game. It's also going to check to make sure they don't go over 21, because if they go over 21, they lose right away. So we are going to have to put a little condition in for that. The stay button click, what that's going to do is, we know that the player's already gone, so it's going to deal all of the cards to the dealer, and we're going to actually slow the computer down so it doesn't do it so fast that we can't see it. We're going to add almost a little animation to it so it looks like the cards are coming out at about a half a second interval. And then it's going to call the reset game method. And the job of the reset game method is to display the results of the round. So we're going to know what the dealer got, what the player got, and then who won that particular hand. And that's it. That's all the methods you're going to need in this little program. Next up, I'm going to show you how to build the form, and then you're going to use these methods to make the rest of the code yourself. Okay, so let's go ahead and make the form for the 21 game. What you can do is you can download the starter file that includes the pictures necessary for this project so that all the cards are going to display. So make sure you go to the Google Classroom, download the zip file, extract it into your folder on your H drive or onto the desktop, and take it from there. All right, so you'll open it up and it looks like this. We just need to make the form big enough that we can put stuff on it. So let's go ahead and do that first. So now that I have the form big enough, I'm just going to select the form, make sure it's selected by clicking in the blue stripe at the top. And then I'm going to go and make sure that my properties window is open. So this is my properties window. If it's not open for you, you can go under the view menu and you can click properties window right here. Or you can hit Alt Enter on the keyboard. So in the properties window, I'm going to scroll to the top and I'm going to rename this form. And I'm going to rename it 21. I'm going to hit enter so it accepts those changes. And then I'm going to go down to the text property. And the text property is going to change what it says up here. So I'm going to say, let's play 21 in the text property. And lastly on the form, I'm going to go ahead and scroll up to background color. And I'm going to click the drop-down menu, click custom color, and then I'm going to change it to a dark green. Okay, now that I have the form set up, the next thing is to add elements. Now, I have the toolbox sitting over here. If you don't see the toolbox, go into the View menu, scroll down to Toolbox, it's Control-W-X. And then I'm going to pin it down so it's easy to work with. Looks like I have to adjust the windows here a little bit. And what we should put on here first is probably the buttons. So I'm going to go ahead and just drag a button over here. And I'm going to put this up in the corner. I'm going to put another button right here. Okay, I'm going to rename these as well. So I'm going to select this first one. And under the name property, I'm going to change this one to the hit BTN for button. Hit enter to save the changes. I'm going to scroll down to its text property. And in the text property, I'm going to change this to hit. And in the font section, so I'm going to go over here, I have to hit the plus for fonts, and I'm going to make this a little bit bigger to read. I'm going to make this a size 14, which also means I'm going to have to resize the button so I can actually see it. All right, next I'm going to go over to the other button, and I'm going to do those same three things. I'm going to rename this the Stay button, Stay BTN with a capital B. And then I'm going to scroll down to the text property, make it say Stay. And in the font section, I'm going to make it a size 14. And I'm going to resize this so that it fits. I might just move these over just a little bit. I'm going to make sure they're the same size. Okay, now that that's done, we can add some labels. So I'm going to go ahead and add the label up here in the top corner. And I'm using the guides here to make sure that I'm in the same spot. And the first thing is, since I'm already on the size from the last one, I'm going to make this 14 as well. And I'm going to make the fore color of this orange. I'm going to click Custom Colors, and then I'm going to click the orange. I'm also going to make it bold. So I'm going to set its bold property to true. And then I'm going to go all the way up to the top, and under Name, I'm going to call this Player Cards. Under its text property, for this, I'm going to say Player's Hand. Now this text property is going to be overwritten by our code, but just so that we can see the layout of the screen, we're going to put it in there. Okay, I'm going to take this and click it, and then I'm going to push Control-C on my keyboard. What that just did was, it's the same as going to the Edit menu and clicking Copy, because I'm going to have basically the same settings, so I might as well just copy it and just overwrite its text property to say Dealer's Hand, and I'm going to change its name up at the top to say Dealer's Cards. Actually, I'm going to make it say Dealer Cards, because I think I made the first one singular, yes. All right, so player cards and dealer cards, just to be consistent. All right, now I'm also going to copy that one more time, and I'm going to put that over here, and I'm going to change its text property to say hands 1, colon. And then underneath that, I'm going to put another label, but this label is going to be the player score. So the name of it will be player score. And the text property needs to say player score. Actually, it'll just say player, colon. And we're going to change its forecolor here to be white so it stands apart from the other text. And I'm going to copy that and paste one more label to be the dealer. So I'm going to change its property to say dealer, text property to say dealer, colon. And the label name will be dealer score. So I'm just going to make sure that I have all those labeled correctly. And then lastly, we're going to add some picture boxes. So now I'm going to select picture box from the common tools in the toolbox. I'm going to drag one on the screen. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make it the size of what I think the cards should be. All right. Now this is the first one, and we're going to make 10 more. We need 11 total. So I'm going to click it. I'm going to push Control-C to copy, or you could do this in the Edit menu. Copy is Control-C. And then I'm going to paste another one in here. I could right-click and paste, or I can use Control-V, whatever is your preference. And I'm actually going to overlap these a little bit. So about halfway. So if I can judge about halfway, I'm going to repeat this a whole bunch of times. So this is number 3. This is 4. And that was probably too far over. Let me adjust that. I want about halfway. So now I have 5. This is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and one more makes 11. All right, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select all of these. So now with all of them selected, I'm going to copy, again, Edit, Copy, or Control-C on the keyboard, and then I'm going to paste them, which is Control-V. You can right-click and go paste, and I'm going to put another set of these cards down below under the dealer's hand. Now I have to go through and name all these. Now it is very, very important for later on when we want to create a loop that is going to loop through the player hand array list or the dealer hand array list to keep the names along the same convention, because it is way easier than for us to put the card images into these picture boxes using a loop every time. So let's keep the names exactly the same, and that'll just help us out as we move along. So in the first picture box, I'm going to select it, and I'm going to name it Player PB. PB stands for Picture Box 1. Then I'm just going to march down the line here, and I'm going to name this one Player PB 2. Next one will be Player PB 3. Now C# is case sensitive, so make sure that we are doing this accurately. And the last one here is Player PB11. Now, I'm going to go through and verify this. You should do that as well to make sure that you didn't misnumber something that could be disastrous later. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Looks good. All right, so now we're going to go down to the dealer's hand. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to say dealer PB1, and we're going to march down the line until we get to dealer PB11. Okay, and again, it's very important to verify that you did this right. So I'm going to go back through this. Dealer 1, dealer PB1, dealer PB2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Okay, with that being done, there's two more things or three more things that I can think of that you'd want to do to set up the form, and that is to set up these click events. So I'm going to double click the blue bar up here to set up the load event. So I'm going to go ahead and just double click that, and I should have a 21 load event made for me. I'm also going to double click the hit button, and I'm going to double click the stay button. And that's going to get you set up with a couple of load events. Now, one of the first things we'll make in class is going to be the private void. All right, so this is basically just a subroutine that's going to run through, and that's load deck. All right, right now I'm going to leave it blank because we're going to discuss that in class, how to build the deck itself. And the only reason I'm going to throw that in there as well is so that we can put that right here. All right. So with that being saved, now we have a runnable form. I'm going to go ahead and hit play. And it's going to be blank for now, but it at least will be able to handle click events, and it's going to get ready for having those pictures. And the rest of the code we're going to discuss in class.